your source for everything paranormal. Para X. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Merry meet and blessed be, heed the words I call to thee. Honour the old ones in name and deed, hearken not to others' greed. Pray to the moon when she is round, luck with you shall then abound. Respect the earth, the sky, the sea, as you will it, so mote it be. Welcome to Stirring the Cauldron on the Para X Radio Network. And now, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Hey, merry meet everybody and welcome. The music you've just heard was called Comfortable Mystery by Kevin MacLeod, and when speaking to the deceased, it may be considered scary and mysterious, but it can also be comfortably mysterious in some ways, and that's what tonight's topic is. We're about talking to dead people. Now, my guest is an old friend, psychic life coach and intuitive medium, Lisa J. Smith. And we go back to the early days of Para X and CBS Psychic Radio, I think that's what it was called, where Lisa ruled the airways every day. And people like Tim Shaw, me, and Henry Foister, and a few other Para X hosts would do it once a week. And while eventually that station faded away, the friendships we made are still going strong. But aside from being a nationwide talk show host, Lisa wears many hats. She's helped thousands of people all over the world gain greater clarity and understanding while giving them the tools to transform their lives. And along those lines, we're going to be talking about one of her courses, her online courses, on the Daily called Talking to Dead People. So Lisa J., welcome back.
Hi, Marla. Thank you for having me.
It's been a while. It's been a long while.
I know. We go way back, huh?
Oh, yeah. We weren't gray then. We weren't wrinkled then. We were okay then.
Yes, we don't want to talk about that.
No, we're not. And we certainly wouldn't mention a chin hair or anything like that. I mean, that would be...
No. No whiskers allowed.
Yeah, that would be tacky. So
yeah.
we'll just talk about talking to dead people instead. Because, see, this is really the neat thing, because people seem to believe that only mediums can talk to spirit. But you say right off the bat that every day, whether we realize it or not, everybody does. And that might come as a shock to people because, you know, it's like I say to people, every day they cast spells and they go, oh my God, you know. So so I think we're kind of in the same boat that people cast spells and talk to dead people every day. So better explain it. How do people talk to spirit every day without even knowing it?
Well, that's a great question. And what I believe in, and this is just from all the messages, thousands of messages that I've given to people over the years, and tapping this spirit, and tapping into loved ones and pets and all different energies that are on the other side, they're always talking to us. So we believe that there's a here and a there, when I work with spirit and what I've learned from working with spirit, there's only everywhere. So spirit is always there with us. Because we're in the physical, we see everything as independent and separate from each other. Mm-hmm. But when we leave our physical bodies and we cross back over, we say, and we turn back into everything that we still are, but don't think we are because we're in a physical body, we were able to then connect with our loved ones, multiple loved ones at one time. So because they're always there and they're always with us, we're always getting, quote unquote, what we call signs. We're always having some kind of, whether it's through a song, or maybe it's through a truck that drives by, or maybe we see a penny or a feather or a certain cloud formation in the sky, or we just get a feeling, or we feel like somebody's standing or looking at us and we turn around and there's nobody there. So I'm not saying every day, all day, we get messages, from spirit. But throughout our lives, when people cross over, they're always letting us know that they're there. We're the ones that need to learn to listen to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what was the incentive for developing this course? What was buzzing around your head that said, I got to do this?
Well, honestly, for years, 15, 20 years, everybody has always said, hey, you need to have classes. You need to teach people how to do this. And when I had my live radio show, I was able to, through giving messages and through the 3-hour show, I was able to help people develop as they listened. And we created basically a community where people were able to grow together. And then, and I've held courses and classes, locally, wherever I've been. I've always done that. But people always ask me, hey, how do I talk to spirits? One of the number one questions that I get. So I have a previous course that was published on the Daily Ohm, which is doing really well, called Heal Your Inner Child. Mm-hmm. So my inner child class was doing well, and the Daily Ohm said to me, hey, look, would you be interested in writing a class on helping people to connect with spirit? And I thought about it, and it took me a really long time to write this course because it's not so easy to explain. I can show people, and I can work with them in person, but when you're writing this down, it's not so easy to explain the energy and the techniques and the way that we can do it in a way that will be able to help people open up their intuition, which we all have. Mm-hmm. So it was a combination of, having a successful course and them wanting me to write a course on this and me saying, yeah, you know what, everybody asks me about this all the time. I'm going to figure out how to put this into words so I can help people through this course all over the world and then see where it goes from there.
So you got a life lesson in trying to put it into words. I like that.
Yes. Well, my first course was not so easy either. Writing that one was not so easy. And then writing the Talking to Dead People it's just a whole, because we're working with energy. When we're working with people who've crossed over, and we're working even with people who are still here, because I teach people that we can not only connect with people who've crossed over, but if you can connect with people who have died, and I don't really love that word, and I don't love talking to dead people, but it gets the message across what the course is. But if we can talk to people who have crossed over, why can't we talk to people who are still alive? Why can't we connect with somebody's husband or child and their higher self and their energy to help give clarity and understanding? So, yes, this is about mediumship, but it's also about working with energy, and energy never dies. So whether we're here in the physical or we're crossed over, it's about helping people all the way around.
And that's what we're here for, to be of service, right? That's
why I do this. I mean, I do this because I believe and I know from working with spirit and the lessons that I've learned, and everything I've learned from spirit. I've learned from either life lessons, as we know, we all have those, right? Mm-hmm. And then I've also learned just from working with them, giving other people messages, tapping into them, doing my own work around spirit. So the energies around me are the ones that help me to develop my skills. So I just wanted to pay it forward. Mm-hmm. And I felt really guided that I needed to do this and help people to do that.
Mm-hmm. And I like your quote about that says talking to the other side is meant for everyone, but what you do, you say to people who are scared to death. I mean, what do you say to people who are scared to death at the thought of even communicating with the other side? I mean, they're afraid they might call up a demon or some other sort of negative entity or God knows what.
Right. Well, this is always based off my experience, and so everybody has their own. But after working, like I said, with thousands of people, and I've done paranormal investigations, and I've been to very quote-unquote haunted places, what I have found is that when we know that we're working in the highest and best, and we just know that we're protected, and I'm not interested in demons, what we call demons. I believe a lot of that, and I'm not negating that they're not there, because I believe what we believe becomes truth. So we can manifest and create what we believe, positive or negative. Mm-hmm. So for me, I don't go into the whole demon thing, and I know a lot of people come from a religious background, or they've been taught this from their friends or society, or it's just a belief that they have, or maybe they've even had really scary experiences. And so they believe that. So as you know, if you believe it, so it shall be. And I tell people, listen, you're safe, you're protected. When you know your own power and you know your voice, which is what the course is about, and what I work with people day in and day out on sessions, is about knowing your power and knowing your voice and knowing that you're okay. You're not even going to attract those energies to you. You're not even going to want to manifest or create those. Yeah, so I personally have not had that experience, and I've done a lot of paranormal stuff. I have not had the experience of demons, but that's because it's not my thing. I don't go into it. I'm not interested. I don't care. So there's no interest in me, and I have no interest in them.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a mindset. I mean, people maybe don't realize that we can manifest for good and we can manifest for bad. And doing things for the right reasons, you're not going to generally get hung up on anything. And
no, intention is everything. But we're taught through religion, or we're taught through, whether it's our community or just different groups of people that we may come and well, you do that, well, that's not okay, or I hear you're going to hell. I had somebody I'm originally from Detroit, and I was down for anybody in Detroit, I was down in Hart Plaza. I was, talking to somebody, and I don't even know how things come up with me. The weirdest things happen. Anyways, he started doing like an exorcism and talking in tongue, trying to pull the demon out of me. And he had his hand on my forehead, and I was like, well, okay. And I put my hand up, and I was like sending him all his energy back, because I wasn't interested in him putting what he was putting in me. And it was just this really weird interaction, but that's what he believes. So I respect everybody, and I respect that all, but I believe that this is meant for everybody, because why wouldn't it be? It's where we come from. It's what we return back to. Energy is energy, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And it's not good or bad. It's what our humanity projects upon it, and the rules that our humanity puts onto spirit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does. I mean, everybody's taught differently. Everybody has different belief systems. And what I find is it's great to have your own belief system, but there are so many people that aren't the least bit open-minded and think that their belief system is the only one. And that's what kind of bounces off the walls.
It blocks them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those people, I can't tell you how many people I work with come from an extremely religious background. But yet they're so guided and interested in, we'll call it mediumship, or standing between two worlds, or connecting, or have had experiences that are very lovely. Mm-hmm. But because they're conditioned to think that this is bad, they're afraid, so they get in their own way. So I tell people, listen, I respect what you believe. Believe it. And those beliefs are important to you. But we also have to, and you can be skeptical all you want, but be open, and let's just move that to the side. Not get rid of it, but move it to the side so that you can then see for yourself what else is there, because you might be really surprised by what you already know.
Hmm. And I think there's nothing wrong with being skeptical. I think there's everything wrong with being
No,
cynical, because cynical you can't budge, skeptical you can, in a sense.
I'm a skeptic. I'm a huge skeptic.
We have to
And
be.
you have to be, and I think that that's smart. And when I say skeptic, I think it means being aware. I think that we have to be aware, and we need to be just on guard, because as in any industry, whether you're selling cars or shoes, or you're an attorney, or you're a doctor, or you're a salesperson selling clothes at the department store, people have their own agendas, and there's good and bad in everything, because people are people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we have to be able to decipher and discern, and part of what I work with people is discerning, and teaching people is very vocal about the red flags. Part of what you, like my course, and what I just decided that I really thought was important to include in it was, red flag warnings when receiving a reading.
Yeah.
And, because that's really important to know when you're receiving a reading, what it is to look out for. Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm getting a reading and this is what it's like on TV. And it's little do they know, 6, 7, 8 hours of shooting is down to without commercials, maybe 19 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's having realistic expectations, but knowing what the red flags are for discernment.
Yeah, and that stuff you really need to know. So how important is it for us not only to realize that we can and do talk to spirit, but how important is it to have us learn to conscientiously connect with spirit? Consciously.
Well, good question. No, I think it's important because we understand and we can connect with spirit. It helps us in our everyday lives have a greater appreciation, not only for our own life and for the gift that we've been given, but also for the little things, like maybe the guy who cut you off in traffic, and being able to send compassion, or for the people that cause us a lot of grief or hurt us. We can find greater meaning to that by seeing beyond, and not just looking at it for, oh, you're a jerk because you did this to me, which is our first reaction. It's very human. But when we open up our floodgates and we open up our intuition, we're able to see beyond the human part of who we are, which is just the earthly part. And we're able to see the spirit that we all are, not just what's on the other side, but what we all are. And then we also see, like I said earlier, the gift that we have in life. So it helps us to heal current relationships, past relationships. It helps us to find gratitude. When we do this work, we can become more grounded and more present in our life, finding more joy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's true.
So it does a lot.
Yeah, there is.
It's not just about, people think mediumship is, oh, you're a psychic, you're a medium, prove to me that my aunt is here. Well, listen, it's not about proving anything. Now, I'll give you messages and validations, and I'll show you how you can do that too. But it's about the bigger picture. Mediumship is just a part of it. It's the earthly part of it. It helps you understand the bigger picture of all that is. But with that said, with being human, I don't believe there is one human who is ever alive now or ever has been alive that truly understands or can understand really what spirit is, because we have to experience it in order to have it. Now, there are people who have done trance, and they could go out and I can do trance and bring in energy into my body. But we don't have that remembrance of where we come from, because if we did and we truly understood what spirit was and is here, we can hardly do our human selves. So how are we going to do our human selves and our spirit self? So we're here to be human first, because we already are that spirit.
That makes good sense. Now, in the course, you cover all bases. You start with the basics of working with spirit, and I'd like to touch on a couple of things now that kind of jumped out at me, starting with learning what spirit is and what it feels like to you, because we just kind of mentioned that in a sense. But that kind of made me stop and think, because I guess I always thought I knew what spirit was, and feeling them is just kind of normal to me. But does each of us feel spirit in a different way?
Well, yeah, because if I've always wondered this since I was a kid. When I had a box of crayons, I would look at a box of crayons. And I used to ask my parents this. I know I drove them crazy with my questions. But I would say, you say this is red and I say this is red. But how do you know what we're seeing is the same thing? So you're telling me this is red and this is red and this is orange, yellow, green, blue. But we all have our own interpretation of what that means. So it's the same thing when we're working with spirit. Our interpretation of the impressions that we get are very personal. And nobody can tell you what that is or what that is not. So you'll have to you get the basics, like this is red, and they tell you that, so you learn association that red is red, and this is a red car, and this is a red flower, and this is a red dress. So we get the gist of what red is, but we can only experience what red is to us. So for everybody, when you're teaching people, it's important to have people understand, what does this symbol mean to you? Because water to me might represent emotion, but to you, that could represent something completely different. And spirit works with each person based off of their own experiences and what they know. We don't have to work based off of spirit and what they know. Does that make sense? So they work with us.
But we just need to be open and recognize it, and not even necessarily understand. I was going to say understand, but I don't think we need to understand it. I think we just need to recognize it.
Yeah, I always say to my clients, and I say in classes or to whomever I talk to, when I turn on my TV, I can be across the room and I have a little button that's red, and I press it. And somehow my TV comes on. Now, I don't need to know how my TV came on. I just know when I press this button, this is going to work. Same thing when I lock my car from inside the house or when I turn on my lights. I don't know how it works. Don't need to. Don't care. Just need to know that when I flick the switch, it's going to go on. So we get caught up in trying to understand and ask the wrong questions. And it's important that we start asking the right questions, so that, and understanding how we learn and how we feel. And by learning how those things, we learn more about ourselves when we learn how we best learn.
And
that's how it helps us.
The theory, I think, is pretty simple. Didn't mean to cut you off. But we need to learn to listen and communicate differently. And that's what you say. And I'm thinking that also means more effectively, both in talking to spirit, but also quite beneficial in our everyday lives. So, and I think you kind of touched on that earlier. It's this whole being able to talk to spirit is like completely in every aspect of our lives, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we're really, a lot of us have heard, we're just, spirits in a human body or having a human experience. I mean, everybody talks about that, and yes, that's true, I suppose. But we're also, like I said earlier, human first. And I said to somebody earlier today, what you said and what they heard are completely two different things. So sometimes we have to take a step back, and when we're working with spirit, it is excellent. I'm so glad you brought that up, an excellent way to learn how to listen and not just hear. Because people think that they're going to hear a voice in their head. Maybe some people do. But for me, it's like my imagination. I hear the song. So if I say to you, hear the song, Let It Be Right Now by the Beatles, everybody knows that song, and they're going to start playing it in their head. That's how I hear, is through impressions. That's how I see it. So when we're working with spirit, we'll get downloaded really fast, but I talk a lot about learning to ask the next question. When we're working with spirit to get messages. There's nothing wrong with asking the next question, asking for clarity. That's very true when we're working with our human friends as well, our human spirit friends. We have to learn, if we don't understand, it's okay to say, all right, so this is what I heard you say, or can you repeat that? Or can you say that in a way that I'll understand? Or can I get a validation of what that means? So by working with spirit, we're also, again, like you said, learning to work with each other in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets us to slow down and to think about our feelings, because we start to feel spirit, we start to feel things differently. And it takes time. Communication on any level, whether it's with spirit or with our human, with our each other and within our humanity, takes time.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes practice, and it takes learning to listen differently and feel differently. Because a lot of times when we talk to somebody, this is emojis, and I talk about this in my course. Emojis are a great idea. Are a great example, because I can send you an emoji, or I can send you something, or text back, but it's very different than what my joke might have been, and you might take it serious. I'm like, no, I was joking.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't tell in a text well, that's where emojis help, is because they help to explain our emotion, right? But if you just send a text without the emotion or without the emoji, then we don't know what that means. So it's a lot of times that's how we are with all the different communications in our life, and we need a greater explanation. Ask for emojis. Ask for anything that you can, whatever works with you, to understand the emotion. Even when you're talking with somebody, take a step back and get clear and say, okay, well, what are they really saying to me when they're upset with me?
Mm-hmm. And you know what, that just came to mind, because sometimes we can read into what people just write. We don't need an emoji sometimes. If every so often, I'll come across somebody write something to me, and I go, oh boy, are they in a bad mood? And it's not what they said. It's the intention that they were typing with or something.
Right.
And so
you can feel it.
Mm-hmm. And so, there's so many different layers to all of this that it's really kind of amazing and wonderful. And if you give us, if we take the chance to peel back those layers, boy, there's going to be a whole new world opening up, for sure.
There really is. It's really incredible. We use such a small percentage of our brain. And we can hardly do ourselves most days. People always ask me about their past lives. They want to know this, they want to know that. And I'm thinking, we can't even do us right now. So could you imagine, we're trying to do like our spirit, and a lot of people, and this is something that I also is important to say, a lot of people, when they learn to work with spirit, it becomes kind of like a drug, because they'll feel the high, they'll feel the love. It's just an overwhelming sensation, and you just don't want it to end, because being earthly and being human is very difficult. We're human warriors, there's no doubt. But it's very easy to get caught up in that love and to become ungrounded. So I always say, you have to have a foot in each world, stand between the two worlds and find your balance. And it's like a teeter-totter, and you're allowed to cherry pick from the spirit world and bring it into humanity. We can bring our humanity into spirit, and it's finding the balance between the two, so that the only reason we do this is because our spirit selves, our higher selves, already know all this. The only reason that we do this is so that we can remember that we're connected to something greater than just ourselves, and we're not just stuck down here by ourselves. That's why people love religion. It gives them structure, and it gives them faith, and it gives them... So this is just another tool to remember who we are, that there's so much more going on than just what we see right in front of us.
And I think when people learn to be comfortably in one foot in each world, it is so grounding. It just absolutely, you feel like a tree where your roots are going into the ground and you really belong, and it's really comfortable and nothing's going to knock you down. So that's another good reason.
It is a good reason, because then people don't always understand what does that mean, being grounded. I used to not know. I'm like, what is being grounded? Years ago, I'm like, what does it mean? What does it feel like? I don't know. I spent so much time ungrounded that I was afraid to become grounded, because I thought I'd get stuck. So we can't do this work without being grounded. We just can't. And that's one of the first things that I talk about, is not only protection. And the truth is this, like I said earlier, as long as you know that you're working in the highest and best, and that you're just loving, you just accept nothing else, and you know your power. Now you can start with your prayers, and you can start with your intentions and your ceremony, and we talk about all those things, and that's great. And I used to do that all the time, because I just love it. I smell incense, and I'm like, oh, and it just, boom, I open up. it's just a trigger for me. Mm-hmm. So whatever it is that you want to do it. But being grounded is, most people aren't grounded, whether they're into mediumship, psychic stuff, woo-woo stuff. Most people are not grounded. Mm-hmm. And grounded just means being in your body. It means being aware and being present. So it's like a hot air balloon, and if you aren't attached to the ground, being grounded means you're in your hot air balloon, but you have those sandbags, and it's just attaching you and holding you down. Mm-hmm. And we become ungrounded when we become afraid. So our fight or flight kicks in, and a lot of us, and this goes to my inner child course, but when we're children, we learn to, or as a coping skill, to take off. I'm in a flight. I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave my body. I don't feel safe. So we've learned to live ungrounded, because that's where, when every time we are uncomfortable or need a coping skill, we check out. So being able to be present allows us to process through what we're feeling, and it allows us to make good decisions, and it keeps our body safe, because if we're not grounded, we're not safe. People who are ungrounded get in car accidents, or they're not paying attention, or they trip, or they fall, because they're not in their body. Mm-hmm. But being in your body, being grounded means, and I believe Dan Millman says this a lot, and I love Dan Millman. He wrote The Peaceful Warrior, one of my favorite books. But keep your feet on the ground and your head in the clouds. So I always picture that stretchy thing from when we were a kid. I think Stretch Armstrong with this. Yep. But you could like stretch out. Yeah, I don't even remember silly putty.
I was just going to say silly putty. Yeah.
Yes, you can. I just dated myself. But you can stretch yourself up. You can bring yourself down. But the bottom line is you're always attached. You're always in control. And being present. If you're not present, you're not going to be able to connect with spirit, because you're not going to be able to decipher. Yeah. And that's where people bring in the energies, because they're like, oh, I'm not even there to protect myself.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we just gave people something to think about, and we're going to take a break for 2 minutes so they can concentrate and figure it out, and we'll be back really soon.
Stirring the Cauldron will be right back, so don't go away. If you end up with webbed feet, remember, you've been warned.
Hey everybody, just a quick note. For those of you in Southern California, the Midsummer Scream Halloween and Horror Convention is going to be happening this weekend, August 3rd and 4th, at the Long Beach Convention Center. It's a huge, amazing event with vendors galore, multiple stages of entertainment, panels and presenters, workshops, haunted attractions, and many famous faces from the horror genre. I was there 2 years ago when Richard Carradine, founder of Ghost Hunters of Urban Los Angeles, invited me to share his booth, and we were also both participants on a panel discussion moderated by Scott Michaels on haunted restaurants and bars in LA. Richard's going to be at Midsummer Scream again this year, signing his book about Disneyland ghost stories called The Park After Dark, the original unauthorized guide to the happiest place on earth. So if you can make it, stop by the Gula booth, it's number 329, and say hi to Richard. And you can find out more about the event at midsummerscream.com. And keep your eyes on my Facebook page, because Richard's going to be my guest on an upcoming episode of Stirring the Cauldron.
Are you haunted by shadow people in the middle of the night?
Do you secretly love all things creepy and spooky, enjoying ghost stories and horror fiction from the best storytellers?
Do you have a true ghost experience you want to share, but no one will believe you?
If yes, listen to the professionals on What Are You Afraid of? Horror Paranormal Show, Friday nights at 9 p.m. on Para X Radio and at www.whatareyouafraidofpodcast.com.
What are you afraid of on Para X?
Our creepy and demented hosts are on call to provide you with all your spooky needs with true ghost stories, interviews, indie music, and new horror fiction.
We are ready to scare you.
Para X.
Welcome back to Stirring the Cauldron. Once again, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
And we're back with Lisa J. Smith, and we're talking about talking to dead people. And it's really interesting because I was going to bring up something right after the break, and that one key word that I was going to talk about has been showing up in chat for the last 5 minutes. So I think that's pretty good timing, right, Lisa? You don't even know what I'm talking about.
I think you're psychic. I have no idea, but I can't.
Well, what it is, they're talking about belief and faith in the chat room now, believing. And my next thing that I was going to talk about was that you used the word believe several times in your explanation about the Course. And I believe that believing is a word and an action that we must embrace in all kinds of different ways. Now, my good friend, the late Kenny Kingston's guiding principle was only believe. All things are possible if you only believe. And you explain how our beliefs are holding us back and how to release them so we can connect to spirit. And sometimes that's a hard nut to crack, isn't it?
Very hard. And that goes back to getting in our own way, believing things that we were taught from the time we were little. And even if we grow out of those beliefs, or a lot of times we grow away from those and we start to look outside of what we know, it's still a part of us. We still have those old tapes, always. Some people call them, Jewish guilt, Catholic guilt, whatever guilt, fill in the blank guilt. We have that, and so it's very, very hard to, and this is what I find is one of the things that holds people back the most are their beliefs, because a belief is pretty much, I believe this is my truth, and that's what it is. But that's where being open-minded comes in. No one's asking you not to believe in what you believe. As far as, how do I put this, like the big picture of things. But it's trusting, and because you're also knowing, listen, nobody's drawn to a course called Talking to Dead People just if they're a huge skeptic and just not into it. Mm-hmm. And that's the truth. Nobody is drawn into spirituality, into paranormal, into the woo-woo world, into talking to dead people, mediumship, psychic, Reiki, whatever it is, unless there's some part of them that feels some kind of connection to this. Mm-hmm. So what I ask people is, I'm not asking you to say, oh, this is wrong and I don't believe this, because that just, you can't do that. Live and let live. Mm-hmm. But what I'm asking people to do is also let's listen to the other side of ourselves. Let's just try it. Let's just go with it for a little bit, because if you're interested in it at all, or you're guided to it, or you're listening to the show, then there's a reason why. And there's a part of you that is going, yes, I'm interested in this because either I've had experiences, but I feel shamed by it or guilty, or I have this, but I don't know how to control it, or I don't like it, or it scares me, or I don't want to do it for whatever million reasons we have. Mm-hmm. I use my dad as an example. My dad is not into any of this. Like, I always, whenever I do anything, I'm like, how can I write this flyer? How can I write this promotional piece where my dad will understand what I'm saying? And I run things by him. I'm like, do you know what this means? And he says, nope, don't know, don't care. I'm like, okay. So I use him to be able to talk to everybody, not just, well, as we say, preaching to the choir, right? Because I want people outside of the people who already believe or are skeptical to listen to this, to be open to it as well as a natural part of who we are. So people believe that, we'll call it mediumship, and talking to dead people, mediumship goes against a certain religion, whatever that religion is, or whatever their belief is, or whatever they've been taught. Mm-hmm. But if it really went, see, it's like it's sticky because I have my own beliefs, see. So, but in my own experiences, it doesn't, you can still have your religious beliefs and still be open to what Spirit's saying to you, because when you really work in the highest and best, all you're getting is just love. You're just getting beautiful messages of healing or of inspiration or wisdom. And I tell people, I couldn't even come up with this. I'm like not even smart enough or wise enough. People are like, oh, you're so wise. I'm like, no, it really isn't me. I'm just like a regular person. But when you're working in the highest and best, how can that be wrong when you're just getting messages of love and wisdom and healing? So that's all that Spirit really is. Now, if you're working in a different vibration or you're poking around somewhere, or maybe you don't want to be poking, you're being told do this, do that, or, judgment, any judgment that comes from humans, it does not come from spirit. Spirit does not judge.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but coming back to beliefs, I mean, what you believe is okay. It's just being open to believe other things as well. Like, we can believe more than one thing.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly.
And they might contradict each other, though, and that's where people get stuck. Well, I was raised that if I do this, I'm going to hell.
Uh-huh.
Because this is demons and this is bad. So you are too, and I don't want to talk, or I don't want to do this, or I really want to do this, but I'm afraid that, I can't tell you how many people don't tell their spouses that they work with me.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many people don't even want their spouses to know because they feel like they will be judged by them, or they will be condemned by them, or they will be put down or shunned by them, let alone their parents or siblings or, friends or other family members.
Yeah.
So it's like the psychic closet.
And you don't have to feel like if you hear something that goes against your belief system and it starts to make sense, it's like some people think it's like cheating on a boyfriend or a girlfriend if they start to believe that, and it isn't.
They feel shame.
Yeah, and guilty, really guilty, and
very guilty. And there's no shame or guilt in love. I mean, you still, there's no God that's going to say only believe this, that, or the other. I mean, that's why there's so many people that have so many different gods.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody thinks that their one God is the only God.
Yeah.
But how can 7.5 billion people, listen, my God and your God, even if we go to the same religious organization or church, we're still, it's like the color red, we're still going to have a different perception of what that God is. There's 7.5 billion different views. And we use those beliefs in 7.5 billion different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's personal for everybody based on their experiences or what they need or what gives them faith and gives them support and community, whatever it is. But as I say to people, I don't judge any of those 7.5 billion beliefs, but you can't just judge just mine.
Right.
And that's what I tell people, be proud of who you are and what you know, because once you grow out, and this goes to my Heal Your Inner Child class, but once we're working within our adults and we're not coming from our inner child wants to please everybody and is afraid of what people will say and feels like we're going to be shunned and put down and judged. But when we're truly coming from our adult self, and we're standing within our power and we're standing within our truth, we feel like, you know what, I can't explore this because this is an interest of mine, just like yoga or just like skiing or hiking. It's just another interest. And then if you're not okay with it, then nobody else is going to be okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about owning what you feels right to you.
Yeah.
Because you're not hurting anybody.
Mm-hmm. No, you're probably helping yourself as opposed to hurting anybody, because you're opening up your mind, you're opening up your thought processes. You may be learning something new that's vitally important that you wouldn't have ordinarily learned. So and
you're paying attention to yourself. Like those little voices that are guiding you to listen to the show like this or another show about mediumship, or even though you might be in the psychic closet, as they say, you're being guided to it for a reason. So it's honor yourself enough to say, you know what, I'm going to see what this is about. And this is what this feels like to me. And like I said, if you're working in the highest and best, I don't get into all the demon stuff and all that. It's just not my thing. And I'll say that over and over and over again. It is what you believe it to be. I'm not interested. I'd rather give you messages from your loved ones. And really, even the mediumship, it's just not about giving messages and validations from a loved one. But it's really about bringing in wisdom and helping us to remember who we are and giving us tools, and I call it homework, but giving us homework and helping us to look beyond our ego and our fears and our earthly selves so we can love ourselves and each other in a deeper, more meaningful way, not just stuck in ego and fear.
Yes.
And that's all that is ego and fear.
Well put. Now, I wish we had, I should have made this a 2-hour show, but there's a couple of things about the course that I would really like to talk about now. And the first thing is, which was amazing to me and wonderfully amazing, is that you're offering this course with the option of letting people select how much they can afford to pay as opposed to one set fee. And there are 3 different payment options, and the first one is very low. But no matter what amount the person chooses, they get the same course. And that's an amazingly generous offer, because I know in past there are a lot of people who would love to take courses and workshops but simply couldn't afford them. And this is going to solve the problem for so many.
It's awesome. And I have to say, and that's why I'm part of the Daily Om community. And I've read the Daily Om since it came out, I don't know, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. I have loved the Daily Om forever. And so when I was asked to write my first course, I was so honored. So that's a Daily Om thing. You know, I wrote the course. It's available through the dailyom.com. You can get to it through my website, which is my name, lisajsmith.com. And there's a link to the Daily Om right to the course itself, or you could just go to dailyom.com and search for my name and my courses will come up. But that's an offering of the Daily Om. And yeah, you can pay, you know, as low as $15, or if you want to pay, you know, the middle or the highest, it's completely up to you.
Yeah.
And it's great. And it's 8 weeks and 14 lessons and 2 bonus sessions. So yeah, I love the Daily Om. They are good peeps. And they're good. They have over 1 million subscribers.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
See,
they're awesome.
I never heard of that kind of generosity when it's been something like this, and I was just blown away. And I'm like, oh, brother, wow, this is so cool.
Yeah, it is. And it makes it, because, you know, not everyone's going to pay $50. Some people want to, some people don't. So I love it, and it's you pick what you want to, and I always tell people whatever. And they do that with other courses, not just mine. So this is a Daily Om thing, and I think it's wonderful that they do that.
Okay, now once people do sign up, how does it all work?
Well, you know what? Once you sign up, you'll receive you'll pay. You know, the middle I think is $35. So we'll just say you pick whatever you want to pay, $15, $35, or the highest, and then you go in and they'll send you. It's an 8-week course, so I believe it's every 4 days you get a new lesson. Every lesson has homework. And there's 14, so it'll take you, the 14 lessons are over about 8 weeks. And then, again, there's homework, there's 2 bonus sections, and then you get a certificate of completion once you're done.
Okay, and so what
and it's all online. So it's all online. You don't download the courses. It's all online. It's an online course. The nice thing about this also is it creates a community, and this is the key for me. And I learned this from doing my show over at CBS, is that creating a community is the key. We need to practice with like-minded people. We are not going to practice with people who are going to say, no, you're wrong. I'm not going to go to my dad when I'm starting off and try to give my dad messages. Trust me, I did that 20 years ago. Didn't go over very well. So you don't want to do that. But you want to find like-minded people who are going to support you, and a community of people who are learning with you, that you can ask questions to, that they can share their experiences with. I love that. And that's just part of it. I mean, that's just once you take a Daily Om course, you know, you can go into these chats and have a community with them as well.
Yeah, and that it is. You have to be with like-minded people, and you share and grow and learn from that too. Yeah.
Rule number 1, when you're starting your mediumship or intuitive or anything, work with people who are open. And the number 1 rule to do is when somebody's giving you messages, do not say no, that doesn't make sense. Do not say no. Just hold space, allow people, because they're sorting out what their impressions mean, their feelings mean, their symbols mean. They're understanding, just like you are, a new language, a new spirit language. So we have to hold space and allow that.
Yeah, and again, it's all just being open. And I mean, that's almost the key word about all of this. You know, I mean, you know, in general, you don't have to agree with other people's opinions, but it's very important to listen, because there may be something there that you will take away from it, even if it doesn't change your opinion. But being open and honest with yourself and not having those blinders on is like utmost.
It is. And then this is a warning that I say to everybody. Not everything I say is like the gospel. Cherry pick it. Take it apart. This works for me. This doesn't. Maybe you have suggestions that work for you. So it's about, when we say being open, it's about open to everybody. Like you said, not just the idea of talking to dead people, but open to each other. And hey, maybe in lesson 3 you found that this would be really, really helpful, but you know what, this tip, maybe not so much. That's great. These are all just suggestions. Mm-hmm. And if anybody is listening or finds this in a year from now, they find this podcast, or they're listening now, or they're like, hey, I know somebody who could really use this. There's a reason why. There's a part of you that's being guided to it for a reason. So trust it and then go with it from there. And you never know what you're going to find, but just know you're loved, you're protected, you're working in the highest and best, and that's it. Mm-hmm. There's no room for anything but love.
Funny you brought up trust, because I was just going to mention that too. And not just trusting somebody else, it's trusting ourselves and trusting others on the other side as well, and trusting others here on the earth plane. It's hard. People, I know people always say, oh, I can't trust my judgment sometimes. I can't, and that's hard.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So, well, that's it. And it's trusting what I always say, trust what you know, trust what you receive, and trust what you give. So you trust what you know. It teaches you, if I'm at work in my physical life, I go to work, and I'm going to trust and be positive with what I know, because I've learned the difference of what feels right and what doesn't feel right. Mm-hmm. And then I can trust what I receive. And then I can also trust what I give. And then people get hung up on, well, what does that mean, what you give? Trust what you give. That doesn't make sense, Lisa. But it does, because a lot of times people are getting things, or they're seeing things, or feeling things, and they don't want to say it. They don't want to be wrong. Nobody wants to look wrong. No. Nobody wants to look stupid. But trust it. There's a whole lesson on trusting the process, and trusting, again, what you know, what you receive, and what you give. Mm-hmm. And that will help you in your everyday life with work. It helps you with your kids, with your relationships, with dating. It trusts with everything. All right, it helps with everything.
Yeah, and the way people are always shooting themselves in the foot because they don't trust themselves, it's so wrong. It makes you take 3 steps forward and 6 steps back when that happens.
Yeah, we doubt ourselves because our ego, and that's a whole other thing, but our ego comes in, and our fears come in, and then we start saying, no, well, that's not right. We second guess ourselves. But when we really work with spirit, we learn to trust and say, what is a sign for me about trusting? So if I feel tingles on my left arm, okay, Spirit, when I can trust this, and this is positive, I feel this. And they'll work with you. You tell them what works for you. Yeah. You work with Spirit. Everybody thinks we're at their mercy. Mm-hmm. And we do what they say. And I remember saying to Spirit, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And they looked at me, and they put their hands together, and they said, Lisa, don't thank us. We're thanking you. You're the one doing the work. You're the one showing up. You're the one who's doing the messages and the writing, and you're the one. We thank you. You don't have to thank us. And I thought, wow. That was really cool. All right, you're welcome.
It's amazing.
Because working with Spirit is fun. It's not heavy. It's fun and it's joyful and it's laughter and it's full of puns and it's goofy, and of course you'll cry, but it's also, that's how you know you're working in the highest and best. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And so don't be afraid to look into this course, and those of you, like Lisa said, that are listening tonight, there is some kind of a curiosity going in there, and so we hope you picked something up from that, which is really good. But so give everybody else where they can find you and the course, and even to schedule a reading.
Yeah. And I'll work with you one-on-one with development in a session. All of that is on my website, lisajsmith.com. Just my name. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and all the social media. I hashtag Lisa J all the time. So you're able to find me through my website. And then on my website, there are links to to my course, and I also wrote a couple books that are available on Amazon. But all of that is on my website, or you can go right to dailyohm.com, and it's just dailyohm.com, and search for my name, and both my courses will come up. And they're very different, but they're doing really well, and I've gotten really great feedback from both of them. So,
yay,
thank you, Spirit.
Yay!
It's been a collaboration between me and my peeps.
There you go, and as it should be. And I want to thank you for showing up tonight and sharing, because I think this is something that people needed to hear. So I do appreciate you popping in, as always. And just next time, don't make it 2 years or whatever, okay, please?
Yes, I'm available whenever you would love. I love talking about spirit and helping people. So thank you, Marla. I appreciate you.
All right, and thank you all for listening in as well. And until next time, everybody, blessed be and merry meet again. Good night.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks. Please join us again next week at the same time for another great guest and more cauldron stirring. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without explicit permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2019. The Mysterioso March by Kevin MacLeod is licensed through Incompetech.com.